That calm, stoic person you admire is probably the most exhausted person in the room. Their composure is a full-time job, burning more mental energy than the actual task at hand. This will show you the hidden metabolic cost of keeping it together and how this habit of emotional suppression quietly sabotages your focus, your health, and your relationships. And the polite smile you wore in your last difficult meeting is running the same dangerous program in your own head right now. Think of your emotional system as a pressure cooker. When you feel a strong emotion like anger, frustration, or sadness, it's like turning up the heat under the pot. The pressure inside starts to build. The healthy response is to let some steam out through a release valve. You talk about it, you go for a run, you process it. But suppression is different. Suppression is clamping the lid on tighter and pretending the hissing sound isn't getting louder. You tell yourself to be professional, to be the bigger person, to just get over it. Every time you do this, you are actively choosing to increase the internal pressure. This requires a colossal amount of mental energy. Your brain has to build a containment field around the feeling, constantly pushing it back down every time it tries to surface. It's like holding a beach ball underwater. It looks calm on the surface, but your muscles are burning underneath. This is why you feel so drained after a day of biting your tongue. You didn't just do your job, you did your job while wrestling an invisible monster. But that cognitive drain is just the first payment. The real invoice gets sent to your body, written in a language you've been taught to ignore. Your body doesn't know the difference between a threatening email from your boss and a saber-toothed tiger. The stress response is the same. When you suppress a powerful emotion, your nervous system gets stuck in a low-grade state of alarm. Adrenaline and cortisol trickle into your bloodstream, keeping you subtly on edge, that tension headache that builds behind your eyes by 3 in the afternoon. That's the pressure cooker hissing. The acid churning in your stomach, the tightness in your shoulders, the unshakable fatigue that coffee can't fix. These are physical symptoms of an emotional reality. Your body is forced to absorb the pressure your mind refuses to acknowledge. It manifests as inflammation, digestive problems, and a weakened immune system. You get sick more often, you sleep poorly, you feel older than you are, you might go to a doctor who can find nothing clinically wrong. The problem is real, its source is just invisible. Your body is keeping a perfect record of every feeling you've ever tried to bury. And eventually, that pressure needs somewhere to go. This internal state is corrosive enough. The real damage to your life begins when the pressure starts to leak sideways, and it always finds a way out. A pressure cooker, with no working valve, will find the weakest point in its own seal and start venting steam in tiny, uncontrolled bursts. This is what suppressed emotion does. It leaks. It comes out as biting sarcasm you later regret. It shows up as a flash of intense irritation over something trivial, like someone driving too slowly. It's the cynical commentary, the passive-aggressive email, the general mood of impatience that you can't seem to shake. You think you're in control because you didn't yell in the meeting, but you took that anger home and spread it over your entire evening, poisoning your interactions with the people you care about most. They feel the heat radiating off you. They walk on eggshells. They learn to keep their distance. You become emotionally radioactive. Worse still, sometimes the leak manifests as numbness. To avoid the pain of one feeling, your brain just dampens everything. Joy feels muted. Connection feels distant. You feel like a spectator in your own life, watching things happen from behind a thick pane of glass. These small leaks are your internal warning system, begging for attention. Ignoring them is like seeing steam shoot from the side of the pot and deciding to clamp the lid on even harder. What happens next is a simple matter of physics. It's predictable, and it is always messy. Eventually, the pressure inside exceeds the structural integrity of the pot. The lid blows off. This is the emotional explosion. It's the moment you erupt with terrifying rage because someone left a dish in the sink. It's the tearful breakdown in the middle of the grocery store. It's the scathing career-ending email you send at 2 in the morning. The trigger is always tiny and insignificant in proportion to the reaction. That's the hallmark of a pressure cooker explosion. The spilled milk wasn't the cause, it was just the final atom of pressure the system could handle. When this happens, it feels like you're possessed. You say things you don't mean. You act in ways that horrify you. And in a way, that feeling is accurate. The part of your brain responsible for rational thought and self-control, the prefrontal cortex, has been so exhausted by the constant work of suppression that it effectively goes offline. It runs out of fuel. The raw, unfiltered emotion from your limbic system takes the controls. There is no one driving. The explosion feels out of your control because, by that point it is. You surrendered control bit by bit every single time you chose to push a feeling down instead of dealing with it. The immediate cleanup is brutal. There are apologies to make, trust to rebuild, and professional consequences to face, but the deepest, most lasting damage of these explosions happens inside your own mind. It fundamentally changes how you see yourself. After the rage subsides and the shame rushes in, you start telling yourself a story. The story is, I have a bad temper, or I'm just an angry person, or I'm emotionally unstable. You mistake the explosion, the symptom, for your fundamental identity. This is the most dangerous part of the entire cycle, because once you believe you are the problem, you do the only logical thing you can think of. You try even harder to suppress the bad emotions. You see your anger as a monster to be caged, so you build a thicker, stronger pressure cooker. You double down on the very strategy that guarantees another explosion. This fear makes you rigid. It makes you controlling. It makes you even more disconnected from yourself and others. You walk through life convinced that you are a walking bomb, and your only job is to prevent it from going off. You live in a prison of your own making, where the bars are forged from the fear of your own authentic feelings. This cycle will continue, with each explosion worse than the last, until you learn the truth. The problem was never the heat. The problem was that you sealed the valve shut. The alternative to suppression is emotional regulation. This is the skill of intentionally using the release valve. It's a quiet internal process. It begins with acknowledging the reality of the emotion without judgment. Simply saying to yourself, okay, that's anger, or I'm feeling a wave of sadness right now. You give it a name. Then you get curious about its physical signature. Where is it in your body? Is it a hot feeling in your chest, a hollow ache in your stomach, a tightness in your jaw? You just observe it, like watching a cloud move across the sky. You don't have to act on it. You don't have to justify it. You just have to allow it to exist. This simple act of mindful acknowledgement is the equivalent of slowly turning the release valve. You are letting the steam out in a controlled, manageable way. The pressure immediately begins to drop. Emotions are just information. Anger is information that a boundary has been crossed. Sadness is information that you've experienced a loss. Fear is information about a perceived threat. These signals are vital. Suppressing them is like smashing the engine warning lights on your dashboard because you don't like how they look. You need that data. Learning to regulate your emotions means learning to read the data, use it to make better decisions, and let it pass through you without letting it run the whole system. The goal was never to stop the water from boiling. It was to learn how to cook.